Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Strategies to Streamline Your Local Government Budget Process. My name is Melissa Keene. I'm a program manager with the Institute for Local Government, and I will be your host and moderator this afternoon. So is COVID throwing a wrench in your local government budget process? This year's budgeting cycle will likely be more challenging than ever for cities, counties, and special districts. Today's webinar will feature strategies to help you simplify the process. We'll explain some important updates to the GFOA's criteria for the Distinguished Budget Presentation Awards and offer strategies to streamline your annual budgeting process. Just a quick overview of today's agenda. We're going to have a quick welcome and overview. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Institute for Local Government in case you're not familiar with us. Then we're going to have some presentations and discussion from our four panelists today. Chris Bullock, Shannon Buckley, Wendy Cumming, and Will Fuentes. And then we will have some time for Q&A at the end. We're going to share some wrap-up and our contact information with you all in case you have any follow-up after the webinar. And then we welcome you to stick around and see a demo of Cleargov software to help you build your budget book if you're interested in that. A couple of quick housekeeping items before we get started. You've probably noticed that your microphone has been muted and will stay muted for the duration of this presentation due to the size of the audience. We've just found that to be a little bit easier, but that doesn't mean you can't ask us questions or make comments at any time throughout the webinar. On the right-hand control panel of your screen, you should see a box that says questions. So please, at any time during the webinar, type in your questions or comments there. We'll be monitoring all of that. And as I just mentioned, we have some time held towards the end after the presentations to handle as many of those questions as possible. So please don't hesitate to type those in at any point in time. A little bit of information about ILG. So we are a statewide nonprofit affiliate of the League of California Cities, the California State Association of Counties, and the California Special Districts Association. So we provide practical and easy to use resources for local governments so that you can more effectively implement policies on the ground. We do this in a variety of ways. We have a lot of written and online resources. We do a lot of training, such as this webinar today. We also do a lot of facilitation and convening services, and then provide technical assistance to local governments across the state as well. We focus in four main areas. We have programs focused on what we call leadership and governance. So this is a lot of your state mandated requirements around ethics and transparency, as well as a suite of materials for people who are new to public service that include information on things such as municipal finance. And then we also do a lot of work and convening around the staff elected official relationship and how to be a more effective council and governing team. Our civics education and workforce pillar focuses on building that pipeline to public service and facilitating municipal school partnerships. Our public engagement pillar is a whole host of things, but focuses on everything from getting started to dealing with difficult meeting participants to using technology and digital engagement, and just focus on how to engage your community in a variety of areas. And then we have a program focused on sustainable communities, which is everything from housing and cap and trade dollars to energy efficiency and helping reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So as I mentioned, today's presenters with us on the phone, we have Shannon Buckley, who's the Assistant Administrative Services Director for the City of Lake Elsinore. We have Chris Bullock, who is the co-founder and CEO of Cleargov. Will Fuentes, who's the Finance Director in the City of Campbell. And Wendy Cumming, who's a Certified Public Accountant and Consultant for the City of San Juan Bautista. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Chris to get us started. Chris, let me know if you see this pop up on your screen.
Yes, I do. All right, I'm going to share my main screen here. And can you see my screen here?
There you go. Yep, we see your PowerPoint now.
Great. Well, thanks, Melissa, and welcome everyone again to the Strategies to Streamline Your Local Government Budget Process. Again, my name is Chris Bullock. I'm co-founder and CEO of Cleargov. Just wanted to start off, real quick for those of you who are not familiar with Cleargov. Wanted to start off with just a quick introduction to our company. We were founded in 2015 as a financial transparency platform, and over the last several years, we've evolved to a full budget cycle management platform. And what I mean by that is we offer solutions at every step of the budget cycle, from capital budgeting to personnel budgeting, which will feed into our operational budgeting platform. which then delivers our digital budget book. We'll show you some examples of that today as we go through best practice examples, as well as our transparency and civic engagement platform. Our mission is actually pretty simple, is to create easy to use software that helps governments budget better. And over 400 local governments and school districts across 43 different states have entrusted us with that. Simply put, our platform is really, really easy to implement. It's easy to use. It connects to any ERP system, and it's affordable, most importantly, for all sizes of government. And as Melissa mentioned, you're invited at the end of this presentation. We'll be showing off a new software, digital budget book by Cleargov. With a single click of a button, you're actually able to build a website-based budget book that will convert to a printed document if you like. That's designed to meet the new GFOA guidelines that I'm going to go through today. And really, ultimately, it's designed to help save you just a ton of time both building that budget book as well as updating it. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into this. So we wanted to start out with just kind of a look back. Obviously the last year, 2020, and even into this year have presented just a ton of challenges for everyone, and local governments in particularly have been affected. And I've spoken with hundreds of our clients and potential clients around the country, and to me, these three themes have really stuck out in that local governments were really not used to remote work, and many of them were caught off guard. And what that has done is increase the need for remote collaboration. I think that was on the radar for a lot of local governments, but COVID-19 has really, really kind of sped that up in the adoption of cloud-based technologies for remote collaboration. Also, when public meetings are no longer public, there's an increased need for transparency and digital communication. So if you can't meet with people, how do you meet people where they live? And really where they live now is online. And so that also is evolving. And then lastly, of course, budget constraints. And we've seen a wide variety where some governments are deeply impacted, maybe a big hit to sales tax that they rely on. Whereas other governments, maybe it's like a death by 1,000 cuts, where they're getting hit in a lot of smaller areas, maybe like parking tickets, but they all add up to a sizable chunk. So those slides or those considerations are I think a commonality. But if you kind of drill down into the finance directors and the budget process, the budget processes must also adapt to this new reality. And most folks that we speak with rely on traditional Excel-based budget processes. And as you are probably well aware, building budgets in both your capital budget, your personnel budget, operational budget, fund budgeting, all of this in Excel can be very, very time-consuming, not only to build these models, but to maintain these models. I always love the quote that I heard from one of our clients said, we were always one click away from disaster in a spreadsheet, one formula gone wrong from disaster. And that really hit home to me. I think is one of the reasons why we're seeing a big evolution in the way budget processes have evolved even over the last 12 months. I've talked about not being able to be in the office together and the need for more collaboration. Certainly you can send out Excel spreadsheets via email and kind of collaborate on them one at a time, but there's no kind of centralized place where people can go and maintain kind of communication, the documents that you're working on. So the old way of budgeting is really not working in this remote, resource-strapped environment. And I think many governments are rapidly moving to move a lot of their systems into the cloud, but particularly their budget processes to the cloud. These platforms, they're pre-built with models, and there's no formulas to break. You're able to invite participants in and limit their access to remote collaboration, so they're only working on their portions of the budget. And the data and communications are centralized. So if you've got files that are related to the budget, all of that kind of can sit into one central repository and can be all tracked via audit trails. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about how we can I think, streamline some particular parts of the budget process, namely the budget book process. But I did want to pause and ask some of the panelists question here. Shannon, we'll start out with you. I wanted to ask, how has COVID-19 pandemic caused any challenges for this year's budget process, and maybe how do you overcome some of these challenges?
Yeah, Chris. So the city of Lake Elsinore was hit pretty hard with the COVID-19. Like you mentioned, we took a hit in sales tax and parking revenue, and we're not a very large city, so those impacts really affected us. The way I'm going to address it in the budget process, I think I'm going to create a section at the beginning in the transmittal letter and address how we came over COVID-19. Actually, we're not over it, but how we're dealing with COVID-19. Right now, I have half staff that work, either here at the office and the other half that work at home, which impacts my budget process because I rely on my accountants to assist me in building that budget book. And when they're at home, it makes it a little hard because, like you said, we're all, spreadsheets and financial databases that, sometimes always don't work when you're trying to log in from home and stuff like that. But how we plan on overcoming it, we actually purchased your budget books, and right now I'm going through the process. I just got all of our information imported. And so now I am handing it out to the department heads, and they are actually entering their information as we speak, due by the end of next week. So we're super excited. It's super easy to use, and hopefully this will streamline a lot of processes where I don't have to rely on my accountants so much.
Great. Yeah, well, sounds great. I know that the budget book process is really one of the most time-consuming portions of the budget process. So that's great to hear. What about you, Will? What are some of the challenges that the COVID-19 pandemic has caused for your organization?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would tend to agree that with people working at home, it certainly is a lot tougher, because I do also account on our team, our different accountants, and all of those that work on the budget to help. So in our agency in Campbell, at one time we also did a lot in Excel. We did a lot in Word. We did a lot over email, but we also did a fair amount in hard copy paper as well. People would jot down a change to a GL account, to a different budget request, and it would often come in either paper, either Outlook, Excel. So it certainly is a lot tougher if you are apart, to keep that same type of Outlook and Excel and paper-based type of process. So we also purchased your digital budget book program. We're also to the point that we're going to get our different departments to enter in the different text details that they need to adjust to adjust their different goals and objectives. If they need to change out a picture, a chart, and we hope that opposed to Outlook and the different things that they did in either Excel or Word, that they're all able to then go to this a cloud-based program, and really you're able to then see and track the changes as well, and you're able to get their input in a way that's a lot easier to control. And I mean, I think especially due to COVID, we're also attempting to go through our costs and our income. And so anytime that we are able to take away from putting the book together to really taking that time and putting it into the data and the income and the expense data that goes into our book is helpful.
Wow, so you're saying the time savings actually helps you improve the ultimate output?
Yes, yes.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
What about you, Wendy? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing in San Juan Bautista?
Well, so last year when COVID hit, we were starting our budget process and obviously not knowing what our revenues were going to look like. We're tourist driven, sales tax, transit occupancy tax are big revenue streams for us. So we focused on last year, okay, what are we going to do to get through the end of the year? At that time, we also signed up for the budget book for the program through Cleargov. So we paused our budget. We adopted the prior year's budget as it was, and we didn't actually finalize this year's budget until, I believe, October, November. But so we, in looking at our revenue streams, trying to figure out how to do a conservative budget during COVID, what assumptions to be made in the recovery, which played out. Actually, we did better than we anticipated. But we did move on to the Cleargov platform, and we're going to roll into it again this year. With the benefit of that is things are all set up now. We had to go through a learning curve on the reporting options and learning how to develop our reports that would help us, as well as the presentation reports for City Council. So we had to put some time into that, and I think it was time well invested. So I think we're on a good playing field right now moving into this year's budget, since it's all set up, and also educating those department heads on how to utilize the functionality of the building the budget book.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting point, is that, adapting also comes with, some learning new tricks and training the employees, but that time is hopefully well spent to kind of take your processes to the next level and adapt to this new world. So I really appreciate the input. Let's I'm gonna maybe switch gears and talk further about the budget book. Really, when we think about the traditional budget cycles, we think of it as comprised as a really kind of a series of outputs, starting with the capital budget, then moving into the personnel budget. Eventually, those things will feed into the overarching operational budgets, and then the ultimate output being the budget book. Today, we're really going to focus on the budget book, and in particular, I really wanted to talk about the changes in the GFOA. If you think about traditional budget books, they're very antiquated. Their output is printed, right? We live in this digital budget. We live in this digital world, and people live online, and a static PDF that's the sole web format is a PDF is not mobile friendly. And actually 60% of your traffic on your website right now is most likely mobile friendly. And that's really how people can consume information now. Also, we talked about, building a budget book in a Word document can be very, very time consuming to create, but also to update. As soon as you have to change a number, you have to go through the whole document and find out what is impacted. So the budget book landscape is actually really changing, and the awards criteria is always evolving. And I know a lot of folks probably on this call have submitted for the GFOA budget book award, but they're always evolving. And this past fall, they introduced some new changes to their budget book award criteria in an effort to improve and adjust to changing technologies. And that GFO, the revised GFOA criteria takes effect only for budgets that are beginning January 1st, 2021 or later. And if it's school district, that's July 1st, 2021 or later. So they're basically giving everyone a 1 year grace period. They know that everyone's not gonna be able to adjust to these changes right away. So there is some breathing room in there. But let's dig into these changes, and we'll go through all of these changes. I've studied them in depth and really tried to give you the cliff notes here, if you will. So if you've ever seen the budget book criteria award, you'll see these are I think there's about 26 different criteria. The first change that they made is that they are getting rid of two of the factors, the criteria, the short-term organizational factors and the impact of capital investments on operating budget. And this right here, if you kind of take those out, these were the remaining mandatory items. Everything in bold are the mandatory items. So actually most of the budget book criteria for the awards program is not mandatory, only these ones you see right here. And but they've added a couple new ones. So there's now the strategic goals and strategies, as well as performance measures. And I think as I've spoken with John Fishbein over at GFOA, I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is the emphasis on strategic goals. They really want to make the budget book more than just a bunch of numbers, but more so a narrative that talks to what are the strategic goals of your local government agency, and what are the strategies you're going to get there, and then how are you measuring yourself to get to those goals. And everything that you'll see, a lot of the changes in here, like capital expenditures, those are actually in alignment with that, and we'll talk about that. But I think that's one pretty big takeaway, is that they want the budget book to move more towards a strategic eye and a strategic narrative. So if you look at this, all the mandatory items are in bold. 2 sections were removed. There were 8 that had major revisions. Those are in the red, and we'll talk about those major revisions. There were 4 with just minor revisions. We'll cover those. But actually 13 sections were left unchanged. So a majority of the budget book was left, the criteria was left unchanged. So what's changed? Now, the first thing, they now want the table of contents to link to internal content, so as well as external contents. So they recognize that more and more budget books are now being consumed online versus just in print. So they're really promoting the fact that you should link out to external documents and external websites, right? You also see that on the right-hand side, they pointed out some best practices, maybe around providing summary sections or summary paragraphs around each section, so the reader can understand what each section is about. They also provided a best practice example of maybe the top 10 common questions. I thought that was a great idea to add to a budget book, things that may be on everyone's mind, things like, how did COVID-19 impact your budget? strategic planning. This is really, as I mentioned, I think the biggest change is strategic planning is now mandatory, but it is not mandatory to link your goals to budget dollars. They would love to see that. In other words, you can show a view of your budget by object, by expense type, but showing your budget by alignment to strategic goals is kind of another view that you may want to consider, but it's not a requirement. They also are now requiring you to explain the process for coming up with strategic goals. So you're not only communicating those strategic goals, but explaining how you decided upon those. So explaining the process for creating those goals, and they suggested actually including a roadmap diagram to share how you came up with those goals. So really, the focus should be on the future, not kind of what we've done, but what we plan to do. And what I wanted to do, if I can switch over here, this screen, can we all see this right here? So this is, I just switched over screens to show you an example of what a strategic goals and strategies section could look like. This is actually in our digital budget book software, but as I scroll down here, you can see that we've outlined goals 1, 2, and 3 and 4, and we've even created some graphics here to show how the spending is aligning with the strategic goals. And I think one thing I'd point out is that you can have unassigned spending. So you don't need to align every single line item with a strategic goal. You can put unassigned spending in there. And this was an example of a strategic planning roadmap that we found one of the best practices that we wanted to pull into here. This is not something we designed, but we did embed that into this budget book as a best practice example. But you can see that this city created a diagram showing the strategic planning roadmap, the steps that they go through to kind of come to their strategic plan. So hopefully that's useful to see some examples and spark some ideas. But I did want to pause here and ask Will. I know, Will, you and I have talked about strategic planning, that being one of the biggest shifts in the new criteria. Can you talk to us about how the City of Campbell identified your strategic goals and how you kind of plan on communicating that in your budget book?
I can. So in our agency, we do got a older strategic plan. It's right now it was adopted by the council about 20-something years ago. So although it's not changed over time, the thing that we typically do with the council and the public is towards the beginning of the budget budget development every year. We'll go through this strategic plan and see what are the specific things in the strategic plan that we really want to pay attention on in the current either a budget or the CIP. And so we'll put together goals and objectives that really fit this strategic plan. And so I do agree that the strategic goals and objectives really do help to guide everything that you put either into the budget or into the CIP. And if you don't have a good strategic plan, then everything that you're really doing is a shot in the dark. But the one thing that I think that we could really improve is to show the public how the process does how the process does work each year. And if we are able to show some type of a picture that would go through the steps, it would be a good way to be open to the public, and to show the public how they can give their input into our goals and objectives that are meant to fit into our strategic plan. So I really did enjoy the picture and a chart that you put onto the screen. I would hope to also put the same type of picture into our book. And although we do show we do show all of the dates that go into the budget each time. It's also key to just pull out that strategic plan, the strategic plan process, and pull it out onto its own, to again show the public how are they able to give their input, and how can they help to drive where we put our costs, and where we put our goals and objectives.
Great. Yeah, a couple of things I love that you said there, using your strategic plan as guideposts. I really love that quote. And also, I think another point that you made, public input is key. And I think that we're really going to see a big shift over the next years to decades, where most public input was in public forums, in person, to really online engagement and collaborative budgeting. That's going to take time, and certainly the benefits need to outweigh the time costs, because it does take time to get input and comb through that and reply. But I firmly believe that there's a lot of smart people in your cities and across the country that really do have valuable input to give. And so I really like that concept of public input on your strategic planning. Great. So the next change, we talked about short-term factors and priorities and issues being combined. That's the first small change. But now they're also asking to show major changes in service levels or fees. So including some type of chart where you're showing the most recent fees and then the new fees, including that in your budget, and then talking about how that impacts your budget. And so what choices and decisions were made to kind of get there. So these things are always going to be top of mind, right? Because these affect the citizen directly. So posting again top 10 common questions or an FAQ page will be really helpful here to predict some questions that may be asked, and answering them kind of ahead of time. So some small changes there. Another small change is on the budget overview page. It's now required to show changes from proposed to adopted. I think a lot of people were already doing that, but they are calling that out now. They also suggested putting together a budget and brief infographic. I'm going to show you an example from our platform what that could look like. But I know a lot of people are trying to include charts and narratives to really take their budget books to the next level. So if I come over here, and I'm going to go into this next tab, this right here, this was within our fund summary section. I'm looking at the general fund right now. Those platforms are automatically creating a summary for every fund for you. Once you send us your data, this page is actually automatically created, and you're injecting your narrative above and below any of these charts, which happen to be interactive. I think that was another point that I made earlier, that a budget book in today's digital age should not be a static piece of information, right? If you want to see kind of what information looks like without property taxes, you're able to do that. And to the point that I was just talking about, showing the proposed versus adopted, here's an example. We're able to show the breakdown in not just graphical format, but also in the table, so you can show that proposed versus adopted right there. It makes it real easy. So just wanted to give an example there. We'll move on to the next here. Another small change, they, again, kind of going back to the strategic mission, they suggested that you show how the org chart, how your organization is organized around the strategic mission, right? If you're really kind of all in on the strategic mission, how are you organized to achieve those goals? And don't just include all department heads, but include commissions and boards. They showed some examples, and you can see over here on the right where you may even want to include headshots. I think is a nice touch, and even showing head count in each one of those bubbles for the different divisions and such could be a nice touch as well. So some good best practice examples to think about there in your budget book. Financial policies, really small change here. I thought this one was actually kind of funny, was you're now asked to say whether the organization actually meets and complies with your own policies, right? So include those policies, summarize them, and then show some graphics and tables to communicate how well you're complying with those policies. Budget process, one of the next criteria. Very small change here was, I think to Will's earlier point, discuss public involvement. I think this is getting more and more important, and I think more and more leading organizations are going to be doing this. Things like satisfaction surveys, creating transparency and civic engagement centers on their website where people can ask questions, people can give input. This is really, really changing fast. People live online. And most people live on social media, and I can understand where people don't want to go on there and engage there. You need to create another safe place where they can go and have constructive feedback with their government. I actually wanted to show a unique example here, which I thought was pretty interesting. It was the city of Redmond. We're gonna again switch over to this, and this is, again, something that we did not build, but I thought it was quite interesting. They put together a video on public input, and we embedded that video into this budget book example. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I thought it was pretty neat, maybe just to show you a best practice example of what some organizations are doing around budget processes.
Budgeting by priorities began in 2008 as a way to align city resources to meet community service demands. The process focuses on outcomes and measuring success. Redmond's budget process begins with community engagement. This year, the process includes a civics results team made up of community members who will review every budget program, results from an annual statistically valid citizen survey, information gained from our neighborhood conversations, and a number.
So you can look up the whole video if you want. It's Redmond's budgeting process, but I thought it was really neat with how they're kind of pushing the envelopes there with video. I'd never seen that before, so I wanted to share that. Consolidated financial schedule. Again, another very small change here. A 3-year financial schedule is no longer mandatory. You're just asked to show prior year actuals. Current year could be your budget or forecast. I still think most organizations are doing at least 3 years, if not more. Another best practice example that I wanted to give here was showing a matrix of your funds and even showing the fund structure in a graphical format, and then maybe even color coding them to show which funds are governmental or proprietary. You can see that on the right-hand side, an example that we drew up. Long-range financial plans, this criteria, again, a small change here, but they're asking you to, the long-range operating financial plan should consider unfunded liabilities and go beyond just the general fund. Best practices to show 10 years and to discuss, again, the long-term strategies, the priorities, and discuss how these long-range plans meet those goals. So just a small change there. And then I think one of the bigger change that we'll get into, and I wanted to have a discussion around, is the CIP program. So they've combined 2 sections, the capital program and the operating impact of capital, into one section. So that's the first small change. But the big change here is that the capital program now needs to identify the process for choosing funds. Not just which ones you chose, but how you chose them and why you chose them, right? So I'm going to give an example of that in a second, but they're also asking that operating impact must be included in this capital program. So they've combined them too. And some of the best practices that we're hearing are CIP scoring, so creating different criteria, as well as CIP ranking. So there's a couple different ways you can do that. And again, if I want to show an example here, go to this tab. This is an example of a matrix. Again, we found this on an award-winning budget book where they've got the health impact, environmental impact, so kind of different criteria very clearly stated in here. And then each one you can give different scores to, and that all kind of comes out into an overall score for each project. We're actually, we offer a capital budgeting platform that allows you to score every capital project and show those scores in your budget book. But this is kind of a quick and dirty way to do that and show that. And again, I thought, great idea to show that and get people's minds turning here. So that is capital improvement planning changes. So I actually wanted to ask you, Shannon, can you talk to us about how the city of Lake Elsinore prioritizes capital projects, and then how do you kind of plan on meeting this new GFOA requirement? Maybe if not this year, have you thought about it, next year? Oh, I think you're on mute. Nope, still mute.
Oh, there we go.
There you are.
So we've already incorporated this. I've incorporated this for the last 5 years into our operating document. But the CIP is developed by incorporating input from key management team members based on community comments and feedback that we receive throughout the year. The team identifies and evaluates the community needs based on roads, parks, buildings, and then each project is reviewed and discussed in length regarding funding, timing, necessity. And then we hold a workshop with City Council to provide the council members the opportunity to review each project in detail and to receive public comment regarding the CIP, the project, and how it fits into our 5-year plan. All projects are evaluated with the city's general plan, and then that's compared to against with the city's long-term vision that was developed by the City Council. Projects that make the CIP document are scheduled on a 5-year basis. Based on community needs and then determined by City Council and the availability of funding. And we rank those projects by level. So for example, level 1 is a project that is urgent and must be completed as soon as possible. It has significant health and safety and public safety impacts. Level 2 is a project that's important, and again, it has safety and health and safety, welfare, quality of life impacts. Level 3 is a project that enhances the quality of life and will benefit the community, but it's not necessarily it's not a health or quality of life impact. And then we have future years projects that they're improvements to the community, but not necessarily needed, don't really impact anything. We also then address in the capital improvement budget and in the operating budget, future operating and maintenance cost that will affect the operating budget. And these costs are incorporated into the 5-year operating forecast over the next in one of the sections that we put it into the operating budget. And it's just operating and maintenance cost only. It's not personnel cost.
Yep. Interesting. So you're ranking projects on a scale of 1 to 3, 1 being the highest, and then communicating that.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Let's keep going here. So the debt section, the debt criteria, there is somewhat of a big change here. They're looking for the debt section to now include bond ratings, debt to maturity schedules, as well as the purpose to obligations. And you may or may not be doing some of these already, but you really do need to now show principal versus interest and maturity schedules, and including a narrative on the debt is very important. And so, we've seen a lot of different examples of this. We have, some sections on some screenshots here on the right. One of the things that we've seen in budget books that are very helpful, I think, is to actually even explain the ratings to the average resident. Just doesn't know what these ratings mean. So maybe a table to explain what those ratings mean could even be helpful. So some changes to the debt section there. And then performance measures. This, I think, is another big theme of the GFOA criteria changes, is that it is now mandatory to show performance measures versus your goals. And I think really what they're looking for here is, what are your overarching strategic goals? And what are the individual departments, how are they contributing to that goal, right? And so linking the performance of each department to overarching entity goals really, I think, is what they're looking for. They talked about benchmarking performance measures against peers. Admittedly, this is difficult. This takes a lot of time and effort and is somewhat aspirational, but to the degree that you can show comparisons versus like communities, I think that can be very, very powerful. And again, I wanted to show an example here. If I switch over to my next tab, this is an example of a department page within our digital budget book platform. If I scroll past the budget breakdowns and such, you'll see that we've outlined some major accomplishments. We've added a org chart in there, but there's specific sections for goals. And here's some examples of performance versus goals within a department page, in this instance, public works, power consumption. So it's a digital platform, really easy to create these types of graphs and communicate those goals. So it doesn't need to be anything overly complex. A simple bar chart with a goal graph will get you there. So don't want to overthink that, and picture goes, picture's worth 1,000 words there. So I'm going to go back here, and one of the last changes is just around demographics. Actually, this is not a change, but I did want to point out that we're seeing more and more organizations using demographics and infographics within their budget books, and really getting creative with different metrics. And I wanted to highlight this city, Richland, Washington. They did a pretty neat some pretty neat graphs in here. They did a population per employee over time, so you can see the graph there and the subsequent the data table that goes along with it. That's complemented with some automated graphics that we put together around household analyses, and benchmarks everything against the state average, economic analyses, so you can see where this city lies within a median income versus state average, and some housing metrics. So there's, I think, a lot that you can do with demographics in that. And again, it's not really a change to the budget book criteria, but I did think it was worth bringing up that we're seeing more and more cities get creative with demographics and metrics within their budget books. So that is the presentation that I wanted to walk you through on the changes to the GFOA award criteria. Wanted to open it up to a question and answer session here. If anybody online has questions, we'll take questions now, and then we'll be going into a very short demo of our digital budget book platform for those of you that want to see kind of how these budget books are built, how that works, and ask any questions thereafter. But I'm going to just start off by asking Wendy, you've worked with the city of San Juan Bautista for a number of years, as well as special districts and harbor districts as in your CPA role. Can you describe kind of your typical budget book building process and some of the challenges you usually face?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, this year was a year of transition. Might as well do it while COVID's running around, using the Cleargov platform. And so just generally, in summary, what I'll generally do is meet with the city manager, talk about personnel and where we see ourselves going, talk about CIP, and then look at our projected actuals through the end of the year, and then start entering the numbers into Cleargov. One thing I want to say, which is kind of nice about the program, is that we can attach contracts and whatnot. We have a lot of contract services, so that when you're going through Cleargov and you're wondering where a number came from, not only do we have the opportunity to put in our messages to one another when we're bouncing back and forth, but we can also attach the contracts as reference, and they'll be there for us when we roll into this next year's budget for reference. So I mean, that we're a super small city, so most of the dialogue is between myself and the city manager. And I want to say we were already set up for remote work environment before COVID hit, so it wasn't that hard on us. But it was also the decision making around what our revenues look like and whatnot. And this is still going to be a very unique year. But I'm happy to say that I feel like we really went through a good learning process with the program. We're up to speed. We understand the reporting. We understand the presentation. And I think that we'll probably move through it pretty quick this year as compared to last year.
That's great. That's great. I think that's a good point. Document centralization. I kind of brushed over that earlier in the presentation, but it is one of those things that people really don't realize until they move their processes into the cloud, that having a centralized repository for all those documents that you can go back and reference versus having everything kind of scattered throughout your email and having to search through conversations to find that stuff. It is really, really powerful, and one of those things that you realize once you really get into everything, all those processes modernized. So I really appreciate that.
I think this year our goal is not only to utilize what we have already done with our operating budgets and all of our different funds, but it is to move into the CIP module and start utilizing that to manage our CIP projects. Again, we're a super small city. We don't have a whole lot of projects, but it would be nice to have it all in one platform for all of us to access remotely as we build it.
Very cool. Very cool. This GoToWebinar platform is new to me. I don't see any questions that have come in. Melissa, do you have any questions on your side?
We do have a couple of questions that have come in, but I also just want to take this time to remind everybody that they can still, enter their questions in if they have any that have come up throughout the presentation. Just please go to the questions box on the control panel of your screen and we can get those into the queue if you have any. But we do have a couple, so let's jump into some of these. So obviously we've talked a little bit about the challenges presented specifically by COVID and all of the things that have happened over the last year. But speaking more in general, what are some of the challenging aspects you all have faced building your budget book over the years? Obviously, you've got a lot of experience here. Are there any kind of general challenges that you all have come across, and how have you been able to address those?
I can go and take this one. Okay. So I mean, I think that the biggest thing that tends to be a challenge is just to get the detail amounts to really tie out across the entire book. And also, I mean, anytime there's a change to an amount, to a GL account, to anything in a CIP, to really to ensure that it ties out across the whole book. So whenever we would do the book in Excel, you would need to check each page. There could be times that if you did a budget change right at the end, right before the book would either go to a council or be posted to the public, it could take a great deal of time to ensure that it all tied out from page to page to page. Yeah. And I mean, I think for me, it was really it was a really big push then to go to a digital budget book program to ensure that any time that you change any amount, that you didn't need to take the time to check, and that you were assured that a change in one account, one department really tied out in all of the pages.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's ensuring that consistency. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was just going to say, I can imagine it's not just building out the budget book, but making sure that as you update it, everything stays in line. And with modern software, I think that really becomes an afterthought, because all your charts should automatically update anytime to change a budget, and even being able to put dynamic figures into a paragraph that are driven by a database. That's the advantage of cloud-based software for sure.
Yeah, ensuring that consistency across all of the pages and all of the pieces of the book, I'm sure, was a very large challenge doing this in Excel or on paper. We have one quick logistical question that I just want to respond to so that everybody hears the answer to it. We got a question about if the PowerPoint will be available after the presentation, and yes, we will be distributing the PowerPoint as well as the recording of this to everybody who registered. So stay tuned for that. You'll be able to access that shortly.
Right. Let's, I was going to say, do you want to bump off to the demo now?
We've got a couple of more questions from the audience that I'd love to quickly address, and then we can definitely move into that. There's a question about if and how an electronic budget book can then be printed or made hard copy. Is that an option that's available? Can they be downloaded to a PDF or something to that nature?
Yeah, I'll share that. So the way our platform works is we realize that having a printed budget book is still necessary, right? We live in a digital world, but people still like to have printed materials as well. Our solution was to you can click a print button, you put your email address in, and you can either select all the pages or you can just select which pages you want to include. And then you actually send yourself a PDF, which can then be printed off. I did have an example of that. So here's an example of a dynamically generated PDF. So the software actually automatically creates the PDF for you, and it does some pretty neat things. So it'll automatically create a dynamic table of contents based upon which sections you chose, and you can even click into this and it will automatically go to that section. So it's all linked. So you see here that it's all doing the formatting for you very nicely and creating page numbers and putting your seal in there. So yes, there is a printed version of that. We actually put a lot of time and effort into building a PDF generator. And some of these PDFs can get pretty big. This one right here has only 27 pages. I printed off a couple pages, but we've had 400 or 500 page digital budget books built in a single click.
Can I add to that, Chris?
Sure.
So also within outside of this digital budget book, they're in the budget entry program. I found that for our needs and our purposes, we need the account number detail, we need the coding detail, and for our operations and our actuals. So we had them upload our actuals through December 31st, and then work with your team to provide us with the reports that have the budget in line item detail by department, so that I can distribute that to department heads so they can see not only where are we at for the year to date, what is my variance to our annual budget, and then they use that for their coding on their invoices and whatnot. So outside of this PDF version that is beautiful and has all the charts, we also needed the managerial reports to assess our operations and make decisions about our spending habits. And that's in the budget program.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. Yeah, we've tried to build in some canned reports that we get requests for often, so that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. So it's not just a budget book; it's a kind of an output from the budget itself. So yeah, I appreciate that. You said we had one more, Melissa?
We do have a couple more that are pretty specific to the software. So if you want to maybe jump to the slide that has everybody's contact information on it, and we can put that up, and then we can get into in case anybody needs to jump off.
Okay.
This is all of our contact information here, everybody on the line. So feel free to reach out to anybody if you have questions. But we do have a few questions related to the software, Chris, that I'm wondering may be covered in your demo, but let me read them to you real quick, and you can either address them or we can get to them as we go through this.
Okay.
The first one is, can you integrate your existing ERP into Cleargov?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. The way we do it is we simply ask for an export from your accounting system into an Excel spreadsheet. And basically what we need is a row for every single account ID that has the account ID, the account description, the amount collected, expended, the year, and the fund. And once we have that, you can also send us basically a key to the account IDs, so we can see which sections are the department, which codes refer to the fund. We can actually rebuild your account codes within our system, upload all the data, and then it will automatically populate into the digital budget book. So from that perspective, we can work with any ERP. We're actually ERP agnostic. We like to say that our platform sits on top of your ERP system. We speak with a lot of clients that they've been with their ERP for a long time, and it's grown roots, and it's difficult to pull out. So it's hard to modernize. Yet you can lay Cleargov right on top of any ERP system, and the data can move in and out via spreadsheets or CSV files very quickly and easily. So yeah, it can work with any ERP.
Going back quickly to the table of contents you just showed everybody, the question is if it will automatically adjust as you add or delete pages. So how like in Word, okay, so it does automatically adjust. Perfect.
It automatically adjusts not just the pages that you add, but as I mentioned, when someone's printing it off the web, they can select which pages they want to print, and it will dynamically adjust the table of contents and the page numbers to that individual book.
Perfect. And then this may be better addressed by one of our panelists, but we have somebody asking how long the transition took from kind of an Excel budgeting process to using the platform. So Shannon, or does anybody want to speak to how long it took you guys to transition?
Yeah, I'm still it was only a couple weeks for me. The software is really user friendly, super simple to use. So it was me basically dumping a bunch of reports out of our financial software, which we use Tyler Encode. And like Chris was saying, it was showing the funds, you know, your department, division, elements, objects. And then I would say within 2 to 3 weeks, they had it already in Cleargov. And so now I'm already working in it.
Sounds pretty streamlined, which is great. And the last question we have is about the training process on how to use it, which I'm guessing you'll probably address when we move into the demo, Chris.
Yeah, I'll touch base with that right now. We offer unlimited training. And we will typically train the finance team up front, get the data onboarded, get them trained up, and then we will do maybe a department head training later on. They don't need to see everything. They have a much simpler view of the application, so we can do a department head training separately. But really, we're flexible. We like to keep things simple. We don't charge on an hourly basis for professional services training or anything like that. We just like to keep things simple. So there's one flat fee for onboarding the data and really kind of all the training you need. We just find that some organizations take a lot of training and some pick it up really quickly, and it all kind of comes out in the wash. So as much training as you need.
Okay. So that's all I'm seeing that's come through so far. So a big thank you to our panelists, Shannon, Wendy, Will. Thank you for sharing your experience and expertise with us this afternoon. Obviously, you're welcome to stay on the line as well, but any of the attendees who want to stay on and see a demonstration of what the software looks like, please feel free to stay. Otherwise, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and you will see the recording and the slide deck come through to you shortly.
Great. So we're now in the Cleargov back office. We have a number of different applications here on the left-hand side, and we're in the budget book application. You can create as many budget books as you like, and what I'm going to do is really quickly show you how to create a budget book, and then we'll answer questions too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly name this demo the ILG demo. I'm going to call it 2 because I did one earlier. I'm going to choose a year that I want to work on. We have a capital budgeting software that you can integrate into here. And so I'm going to select which year of the capital requests I want to incorporate. And once I do that, I click Save. And what it's doing right now is actually generating that budget book. So literally in a couple of seconds, if I click into here, click into Edit, you'll see that it's already created all the pages for us. When you first log into the manager, what you're going to see is the detailed criteria location guide for the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award Program. It's going to be right in here. So if you drop these down, you can actually see all the different criteria embedded into this software. So we literally built in the GFOA criteria into the DNA of this software. You'll notice that some of these are checked and some of those are not. So basically, this content, the table of contents, is one of the criteria. It's automatically generated, so by default, it's checked. You'll see that once we start filling in information, it'll detect content in there, and it will fill this circle in green, but it will not put a check mark because we don't know when you're done finishing maybe the strategic goals. But you can come in here and check this off anytime. So really acts like a checklist for you in a nice reference guide if you're looking to win that budget award program. But really the magic happens in this, this editor. And so in the editor, what you see here on the left-hand side is really the primary navigation. So if I switch over to the example right here, you'll see this navigation right here. That's reflected on the left-hand side here. So we're automatically creating pages, best practice pages, as well as pages that would meet the GFOA criteria. So all you need to kind of do is come in here and just fill in each one of these pages, right? So just to show you how easy it is to fill in a page, you know, for instance, is the transmittal letter. You can change this. You can put in a byline here. You can upload an image of the mayor or the city manager. If you click on this, you'll see that it opens up a full Word editor. So you can do any type of dynamic text in here. You can even view the source code if you wanted to embed HTML. And it's even got an ADA accessibility checker. So you build all your content in here and click this button and it will automatically scan the document to make sure that it meets ADA requirements, which is pretty neat. And you can also embed charts and tables in here. So if you want to drop in some content, you can easily do that. You also have the ability to add panels. So this is just kind of the start. I'm going to show you in a moment how you can quickly do that. But as I scroll here through here, you see pages like history of the city, and all of these can be updated. They all have their own kind of format. This one has an image, so you can upload an image here. You can attach files. Some of the pages are automatically filled out. So for instance, this demographic page, we automatically pull in data from the Census Bureau, and we'll create these beautiful infographics for you right out of the gate. So you don't even need to think about this. This is actually already generated. This is one of the sections that's included. Other sections like org chart and fund structure, basis of budgeting, all these you're going to come in and fill out. If there are some pages that you don't want in the budget book, you can simply turn them off. Just turn off that switch right there, or you can even delete the page. You'll even notice that there's some tips and tricks in here. So we took some of the content from the criteria guide and embedded it into these pages, so you know kind of what you should be putting in each one of these. As I scroll over to the next section, these are, again, just going to be kind of templated pages that you're going to want to fill out, like an executive overview, personnel changes, things like that. But you can also very, very easily create your own pages. And so, one of the topics we had today was COVID-19 impact. So you could create a page called COVID-19 impact and reorder that. Maybe I want to put that up here. So I'm going to drop that at the top right here. And then you may want to drop some text in there by, oops, that's a QR code that I had on my camera. Pull some text off this page to show you how you can drop text in there pretty easily. So I can drop text in here and it'll do a spell check even for you. And so I start to build out that page, and maybe I want to build another section with a graphic on the side. So it creates that new section for me with headline. I can drop some more text in here. And right now it's got a chart in here. So we've got this whole chart builder tool. So I'm going to go in, and I had already created a chart in here. Let's see, what was it? Property tax growth rate. So it's a chart I built in our chart building tool. And so you can see how easy it is to create a page and kind of get going. And you'll see that you can move these panels up or down. So really, really flexible system there. If you wanted to, you could do a print preview there or a web preview. So that kind of the opening sections, the introductory section, and the budget overview. Then we get into the kind of more of the meat of the budget book, where we have fund summaries. And what you do here is you simply give it a name. So we're going to create a general fund page. I select which one I want, and you can select any combination of funds. So you can combine funds into a single page, but I'm just going to click save. And what this is going to do is it's automatically going to take all the data that you sent over to us that we ingested into our system and build a page for you automatically. And you'll see that it's got the general fund at the top here, and a section where you're going to want to put a description of that fund. Then it's got a summary. In this instance, we've got about 20 years worth of general fund data. So it's showing budget versus actuals for the last 20 years or so. It even actually creates a paragraph. It writes a paragraph, kind of a Mad Lib paragraph, if you will. So we take the city's name and the revenue projections and expense projections and write out content for you even. But you can override that. You can add your own narrative in here. Then what it's going to do, it's going to automatically create all different types of charts and graphs for you. So the first one would be revenue by fund. We're only looking at one fund. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hide this panel. So it takes that off the page. Revenues by sources is a bit more interesting. So you can see that there's a nice view here. I may want to click into this to write some narrative around revenue by source. You can see that also gives you not just the next year's budget, but a historical view. If I wanted to, I could switch that view to make it be a bar chart if I wanted that by default, or you can even do it by percentages, so you can see which parts of the budget are growing in importance. And then again, we got expenditures by fund. I'm going to hide this panel since we're only looking at one fund, but here we have expenditures by function, a breakdown there. And again, you can see that here. You can drop this down to view a spreadsheet of that. I showed that earlier in the presentation. So each one of these has spreadsheets to go along with it that can be customized. And so the concept here is that out of the box, it's automatically building all of these charts and views for you, and then you choose which ones you want to show and then rearrange the page as you see fit. So we call it a reductive model, where we kind of build everything for you and then you trim it as needed and then add in the narrative. So it really does save a ton of time. And I think to Will's earlier point that if you change if you're using our budget platform, if you change one of the numbers in here, all of these charts and all of the tables are automatically going to adjust for you. You don't need to go through and update these. We also have a section around funding sources. So if you wanted to show revenue sources, you can create different pages around that. Works just like the fund summary pages I just showed you. I want to point out department pages, so I can create a page for any department, and I'll just go ahead and create one for the police department here. And you can see that I can choose where I want those revenues or expenditures to come from, and I'll just select across all funds. I could go into revenues if I wanted to include I don't know, maybe motor vehicle tickets here or something like that, across all funds, and then continue. And again, we take this templated approach where we're automatically going to build out the department page for you, all the charts and graphs you could possibly think of, expenditures by fund, revenues by fund, expenditures by object, revenues by object, everything, and you choose which ones are applicable. So here you've got the department name, you've got maybe you put the police chief in here, maybe put the mission at the top of the department. It's got a expenditure summary that's automatically generating for you here, and you can see that it shows budget versus actual for every year. And then again, we're creating charts, expenditures by fund. There's only one fund here, so I'm going to hide this. Expenditures by function as well, only has one, police services. But they've got expenditures by expense type, shows kind of a breakdown here. So that may be useful to keep in. And again, you've got the trending graph that is interactive. So if I wanted to look at just one part of the graph, I could do that quite easily. And then in this instance, they also have revenues. So they're showing revenues for the police department, budget versus actuals. So you can see, again, we're creating all these charts for you automatically. You trim down, choose which ones you want to show in there. The other thing that we create a section for is organizational charts. So you can click right here and upload an image of your org chart. And this is what I was showing earlier, where you can create some goals. So you would fill in the left-hand side with the description of the goal and then choose a chart. So you can very easily create some charts within our chart builder and then choose them to inlay them in here. So quick and simple to build those department pages. And what's really neat about this is that you can invite people to this. So if I click on contributors, you can set up multiple editors in the platform. So an editor is generally going to be someone in the finance department. You want to give access to the whole application. But a contributor, what you're going to do is you're going to enter their first name, last name, email, and title, and then choose which page you want to give them access to. So in this instance, I only created one page, but they'll get an email notification, and when they log in, all they will see is that one page that they can edit. So you can actually assign all the department pages to department heads, and they can fill out their individual sections. And I guess the last couple of things I'll show in here is capital improvements. We do have a whole capital improvements product that automates the collection of capital requests. So you can build out different forms, invite people to fill out these forms online, submit their capital requests. It then actually pulls them all into one central repository, and you can build kind of what if scenarios and different budgets around that. And then send that to the digital budget book platform, and it will automatically create a 1 year and a multi-year capital improvement plan page for you. In this instance, in this demo account, I only have a couple of capital improvement projects, but you can see that's building out charts for total funding requested by departments. In this instance, over the next 5 years, total funding requested by source, capital costs breakdown. If you had some operational cost, it would show here as well. And then for each one of the capital requests that comes in, based upon the form that they're filling out, it will actually create a web page for that capital request. So you can kind of drill into those, and they can upload pictures and do all kinds of neat things with that. So I want to show you what this ends up looking like. So I know I went into this a couple times during the demo, or I'm sorry, during the presentation. But again, what we're looking at here is a website-based budget book. So we create a website that can be then printed to PDF. So you're going to have best of both worlds. It automatically prints the PDF for you, creates the PDF for you. Here's an example of a transmittal letter. You can even see that we embedded their signature there. All these different sections. The budget book looks really nice and clean, and here's history of the city. So they've gone through and build out this budget book with some nice graphics in here. And so here's an example of that COVID-19 impact page I created. You can see we filled in some narrative there, and there's that property tax growth rate chart I created. So real quick and easy to create those pages. And then again, you've got those fund summary pages that are all automatically built for you. So this is something that really saves time. Again, not just to build, but to update. And it can be customized, not just by adding pages, but you can customize the graphics in here. You can customize the fonts, the colors of the charts. There's really quite a lot to this program. And so just wanted to give everyone a quick overview of what this platform looks like. We're happy to give you and your team a more full demo if that's something that you wanted to explore. If you had questions about pricing, the platform ranges anywhere from 5 to 25K, depending upon the size of the organization. But generally, for most organizations, it's anywhere from 5 to 15. So quite affordable, and there's also a one-time onboarding fee for training and data onboarding. But if you want to get a specific quote for your organization, it's based upon the size of the budget. We're happy to do that. Feel free to reach out to me personally, and I can point you in the right direction. You can email me at cbullock@cleargov.com. My contact information will be in the presentation that we will send out to everyone, so you'll have everyone's contact information. But feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Would love to answer them or point you in the right direction. Yeah. So
We did
We'll
one
leave it
quick
there.
question. Oh,
Sure.
we did get one quick question during your presentation.
Great.
I think you addressed this, but just to put a point on it, can multiple users simultaneously be in the system?
Yes. Yep. You can do that. Though you want to make sure that two people are not editing the same page at the same time. So this does not work like a Google Docs, for instance. You can't see someone else typing.
One other question just came in. Is this subscription based or one time? So is it like an annual subscription, or
yeah, it's
do
an
they
annual
purchase software?
subscription. It's an annual subscription. You know, we don't require multi-year contracts. We firmly believe that if you like the product, you'll continue to use that. With that being said, most organizations usually sign up for a 3-year agreement just so they can lock in pricing. We typically don't raise prices. We do have a 3% annual increase, but a lot of organizations like to kind of lock in prices. But we don't require multi-year contracts, and you know, so you're happy to try it out for a year.
Okay, well, that's all the questions I'm seeing at this point. So thank you again, Chris, and thank you again to our speakers, if they're still on the line, Will and Wendy and Shannon. And thank you to all of those of you that stayed with us and for joining us this afternoon. So with that, I will let everybody go and enjoy the rest of their afternoon. So thank you again.
Great, thanks everyone. Great day. Bye.
Thank you.